So $685,000 loss. I mean, so on to another loss here. We've got complete mayhem in Mississauga. So you're talking about another 60% loss here. The Canadian real estate market is crashing, and in this video, we're going to get into just some of the unbelievable losses. More than 60% evaporated, gone. And we're going to get into the evidence of what's going on here. So first of all, let's start off with interest rates, because a lot of people are saying interest rates are coming down. This is going to all stop now. The real estate crash is over and the market is just off to the moon. But I want to remind people that yes, interest rates are coming down, and that is somewhat stimulative to people who want to take out debt and people who have debt, but it's being offset by people losing their jobs and the economy significantly worsening. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that, guess what, the unemployment rate going up, that's way worse than interest rates going up, as people are going to find out. Now, that doesn't mean that stupid people aren't going to go out into the real estate market thinking, yay, interest rates are coming down, it's time to buy. That may happen, and it may happen in spring, and you might even see prices go up a little bit, but that will be temporary. I want to remind people, because we're in part of a bigger cycle here. So let's get into some of these losses, which are just astounding. And really, you just can't deny the evidence that the crash is occurring and it's happening, and this is a real estate crash. So first of all, I want to go into this Brampton loss, and I want to give a huge shout out to Shazzy Goalie. Go follow him on X. He's posting this stuff all the time. If you follow him, you can't deny that the crash is happening. So this is another one that he posted. So $685,000 loss. I mean, to most of us, that is just unbelievable to think about losing that amount of money. And, you know, old school people say, oh, it's bricks, it's bricks, it's bricks. You cannot lose money if you're buying bricks or you're buying a house, essentially. And here we are. You know, I just remember all these narratives that were spun around these places that they're just going to go up forever. And now it's really not the case, even though the narratives still persist a little bit. So this is a 34% loss. They bought, of course, in 2022 at the peak. And guess what? They paid $2.02 million. So that's a hell of a ripoff for a house like this, which is just an average house, really, although they'll probably call it a luxury house. And they sold it for $1.33 million. So that is, guys, a 34% nominal loss. Now, you're probably wondering how on earth I got to 60%. So let's pull up a chart of inflation. Obviously, inflation since 2022, we know, has been extremely high. It went up, and this is obviously compounded over time as well. So all this obviously compounds, and this is a lie. It's complete BS, and we know this on this channel. If anybody thinks these are accurate, then they are just crazy. Absolutely crazy. They're not living in the real world. Even the mainstream media knows that these numbers are completely fake and fiction. And when you go to Shadow Stats, it shows you the real story. The red line being the fake CPI, and then the blue line being the 1980s based CPI. And basically what you can see on here is, if you go over the blue line, still right now is between 10 and 15% if you were to use the 1980s base CPI. So you look at that, and it's been there for a long time. In fact, it was over 15% at one point. So all that compounds, and you're at least at 30% since 2022. So you have literally got huge, staggering losses. And I know there are a lot of lay people out there who go into real estate and they think, oh, I'm selling it break even. I mean, I saw this all the time in Calgary. People were desperate to sell for the same price that they got way back in 2015. And guess what? They didn't even notice that actually they lost a ton of money due to inflation. They thought, oh, you know, at least we didn't lose money on this. We sold it for the same price that we got in 2015. We had to wait 7 years. But guess what? You lost an insane amount of purchasing power. I mean, people just don't put it into context with real inflation. And guys, I would urge encourage you to actually calculate your own rate. You know, calculate your monthly expenses, then a year later, calculate your monthly expenses again to know what you're up against, because you need to know what you're up against. Your personal inflation rate is personal to you, and you need to know what you're up against, because guess what? You've got to beat that number in order to maintain your purchasing power. Hence why so many rich people buy gold and they also buy silver, because it's protection on that. So on to another loss here. We've got complete mayhem in Mississauga. So this is another huge loss. So they also put money into this. This is partially renovated and it's a $725,000 loss. I mean, $750,000. Do you really think the people who bought that have that money? So basically, it's absolutely insane, and they've obviously put money into it as well. So we're talking about a 32% nominal loss. Obviously, we're just saying that inflation over the past 3-4 years total has been 30%, which I think is a low number, and I'm sure many viewers on this channel will believe that too. If you think that's a high number, I don't know what planet you're living on, and I can't really help you with that. So you're talking about another 60% loss here. It's just absolutely unbelievable that people are losing this amount of money. But, you know, it's all part of the cycle, and I've predicted this for a long time, that this was coming, and people said that I was a complete clown and an idiot, and now look what's happening right now. And all those markets like Calgary, Edmonton, you know, they're just going to be the last dominoes to fall as well. But believe me, those dominoes are going to fall down as well, and people there right now think they're super smart buying real estate there. So, I mean, you just have to look at the context of the Canadian economy, which is in free fall right now, essentially. Hence why nobody wants to hold the Canadian dollar, because all the capital is fleeing out of the country because there's no opportunities in there. And I don't care if you switch the government, you're not going to switch around the power structures. You're not going to be able to do a 180 on everything. And you got to realize that the government is in bed with these power structures as well. So I know Pierre's a populist. I know many people like him, and I'm for sure that he will be better than Trudeau. But still, you're not going to see him turn around the economy like he's saying he's going to do. You're going to be bitterly disappointed, just like with David Cameron in 2015 in the UK. I've seen this all before. So anyway, investor implosion in Ajax, power of sale, $400,000 loss. This home was bought in 2022 for a whopping $1.5 million, 50% over asking. God knows how they got finance on it. Less than a week after it was put on the market, the new owners almost immediately put it up for rent, renting 2 separate units, basement and upper levels, for $4,700 a month combined. The lender stepped in after 88 days on the market, sold it from under them for a whopping $400,000 loss, and that doesn't include all the fees and the realtor commissions. And guess what? That works out to a 27% nominal loss. So again, if you put 30% inflation on that, you're nearly at 50%. So all that money that they put into that, if you total inflation and what they lost, which is reality, that is reality. People who describe nominal losses over a period of time like 2-3 years, they are just, I don't know what planet they're living on, because you have to include inflation in that, because otherwise it's just not true. It's just not factual. What can you really buy? What are your expenses like compared to 2-3 years ago? Because if everything's gone up in price, it's not realistic to compare that. I mean, I was watching Home Alone over the holidays. I'm sure many of you were watching that film as well. And in Home Alone, they stay in that hotel in New York City and they get the room service bill, and it's like $900. Well, guess what? If you want to stay in that hotel right now, then guess what? You're going to be paying more than that per night. $900 back when Home Alone 2 was filmed was a heck of a lot of money. But now, that's nothing. That's nothing when you really think about it for a 5-star luxury hotel. Somebody's room service bill. I mean, I watch a guy who reviews these luxury hotels, and believe me, that is nothing when it comes down to it. So a $400,000 loss. And then you've also got Ontario local news reporting on this. Home sells at a huge $550,000 loss in Oakville. So again, you know, it's just very interesting, because you've got to read what they put here. They put, while the Bank of Canada just announced another big rate cut this week, many homeowners are struggling with borrowing costs after buying at peak prices. But again, they're not mentioning the elephant in the room, which is the unemployment rate and the fact people are losing losing their jobs. I mean, I just don't get it because it's really simple. I know you guys really understand this, but they just don't get this. They just think it's all about interest rates now because that was the pin that came in. They have no idea of what's really going on in the bigger context of the cycle that we're in. So there have been several examples of homes selling at a loss for this year in Ontario. Many of them have been in Brampton. I wonder why, including a house that was sold for a $520,000 loss in November, purchased at the peak in early 2022 for $1.8 million. And that is something you got to think about. Purchased at the peak. Remember that. When all these other markets that are still at their peak prices, you'll have the same thing happen, but people think they're super smart getting in there right now. So you've also got rents going down, which just completely eats away and erodes the underlying asset value, which we talked about on this channel before. So as in the Brampton example, the owners purchased this place at the height of the market in January 2022 for a whopping $2 million, and it sold for $1.45 million. So again, huge loss, 27%, highlighting just how much home prices have ballooned in the past 15 years. This home sold for $714,000 in November 2011. So think about that. It's doubled in price, even though it's selling at a huge loss right now, and nobody can really afford this. I mean, it's really funny because they describe it as a luxury freehold townhome. They'll do anything to try and justify the price. The real estate industry obviously saying, oh, these are luxury houses. These aren't just, they're built using the same wood as every other house in Canada. It's just the facade. But again, it's like the government. When you change the facade of the government, to a lot of people, they think, oh my God, everything's going to change. But behind the scenes, you just change the face of it. Behind the scenes, everything remains exactly the same. And that is the sad thing. So it's really interesting, actually. So anyway, that's what's going on, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, you want access to exclusive content, go to buymeacoffee.com/marketmania. If you're looking for a VPN, want to protect your privacy, expressvpn.com/marketmania. Thank you. It really helps out the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.